Bill Belichick, he's going to call you out. And it's something I remember early on in training camp. He called Tom Brady out. He missed a couple throws in practice, and he wasn't happy about it. And the next day in the meetings, he's like, hey, man, if we could just get a quarterback that can just hit wide open guys, maybe we can win some games this year. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, this dude is, I came in, this was 2009, this dude was already considered, one of the GOATs. So that I don't know if they kind of plan that behind the scenes before they go into it, and they do that little shtick every training camp. But it definitely resonates with you that, hey, if Tom Brady's been held to this standard, and I know Darius Butler has got to be held to at least that same standard as well.
Hey guys, welcome on into Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks. You know the show. We talk with the biggest and brightest stars in sports, entertainment, and media. And with the NFL season in full swing and so many storylines on and off the field, we thought that we would welcome in someone who knows this area so well. 9-year NFL vet, played with the Patriots, the Panthers, the Colts. Now he has a podcast that he co-hosts called the Man to Man Podcast, as well as doing so many other media opportunities and so much more within various communities. I'd like to welcome on none other than Darius Butler. Cheers for everything you have accomplished and everything that you're doing, crushing it in media world.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, Julie.
What are we drinking today?
We got a strawberry acai lemonade, and I stole this drink order from my daughter. I got some bougie kids, so they always switch up their order. So I stole this one from my middle schooler, Maya. You
have a podcast, Man to Man Podcast. Tell me, what inspired you to get into sports broadcasting?
Oh, man, first off, I never thought in a million years this would be something I would do after playing. I'll probably the same would be said for my co-host, Antoine Bethea, who spent 14 years in the NFL. But just consuming media, watching it. I actually went to broadcast boot camp, once I was done playing. That was very interesting for me. I went and did some spot things with some of the big networks. And then I kind of said, you know what, if I did something, I would want to do it kind of unfiltered, be myself. I want to have, those real locker room type conversations with other guys that are still playing or maybe former players. And then some people who, aren't really in the game. Some people, we've had financial advisors. We've had someone from Dapper Labs and NBA Top Shots, just different people having different conversations. And it's fun, man. That's one of the things that I miss most about playing and being on the team is having those kind of unfiltered crazy conversations. And I do that every week, Monday and Thursdays with my co-host, Antoine.
So what's a conversation right now that you guys are fixated on?
Well, I mean, right now we're in the NFL season, so that's all we talk about now. In the off season, it's a little more difficult, I guess, to find topics to talk about, or what your fans or listeners will be engaged in and interested in hearing. But right now, it's easy, and the NFL sports as a whole is kind of like the best reality show going. So all these different stories. Our Colts, we're both former Colts, so our quarterback, he's banged up. Where we go from here going forward, starting the 0-2 hole. These young quarterbacks, all these rookies that everyone's excited about talking about. Justin Fields will be getting his first start. So it's storylines galore around the NFL, and we're 10 toes down into it right now.
And former Indianapolis Colt quarterback Peyton Manning having the Manning cast with his brother Eli Manning. We were talking about it before we came on air. It has just sort of taken the world by storm, at least the Twitter world. What do you think about the Manning brothers doing this Monday Night Football broadcast?
I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. Obviously, both of them all-time great players. Peyton, one of the best quarterbacks ever, and obviously brilliant football minds. But just to see, them let their personality out, them having on the guests that they've had, Ray Lewis, Gronk, our guy Pat McAfee, who also played a huge role in, getting me into this podcast and media space. He was electric on the last one. I think they doubled their viewership from the first week to the second week, and I see that continue to grow. If you're a fan of the game and you want more of the Well, I know me as a defensive back, if I was playing or even coaching right now, I would be tuning into the broadcast just to get all the tips. Like, what do quarterbacks think about when they're going into 2-minute situations, when they enter the red zone? You know, when it's raining, it's going to be a bad weather game. You know, Peyton Manning last week, he said, hey, I'd rather be in the shotgun because it's easier to handle the ball, and that Jared Goff had a big fumble. So you just learn so much from those guys. It's kind of fast-paced, so I wouldn't say it's for the, just the casual fan. But if you're more into the X and O's and what's actually going on behind the scenes in these plays and game plans like that, I mean, it's football heaven.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. You mentioned it does go very deep on the X's and O's, but then also weaves in some fun stuff too, with even Brett Favre this past week being like, I didn't even watch the first half of this game, or, you know, them telling stories, Eli saying he snuck into a bar trying to meet him or whatnot. So it's fun to see their personalities come out, which is what we love within sports and obviously entertainment. You mentioned Pat McAfee. You were on his show recently discussing, you know, everyone being really against the NFL's taunting policy. What do you want to see the NFL do in terms of this going forward?
I mean, I would say just drop it, just complete. I don't know. The owners got together for some reason. I don't know. I guess they were bored and not having fans in the stands and somehow came to the conclusion that the fans, once they get back in here and tune back in on TV, they don't want to see guys, you know, showing emotion after making huge plays. And I think Ron Rivera came out and was like, hey, you know, we're trying to, you know, eliminate the brawls or whatnot. I mean, I can't think of the last time that I've seen a brawl, you know, on an NFL Sunday. So maybe the Baltimore, Tennessee, you know, standing on the logo and kind of getting into it. But even that was kind of, you know, whatever. So as players, it's so much emotion and so much that's on the line, play in and play out, week in and week out. And as a fan now for the last, you know, 3-4 years, I want to see that emotion come out in between those plays. We want to see personalities and, you know, not just guys out there being robots. So I hate it. And I also hate it for the guys, you know, because you see games swing, momentum swing, points come off the board, people get extra downs. And if you're a casual fan, if you're a guy or girl that may be betting on the game, these are huge swings in the game and momentum. So I hate to see it, honestly. Obviously, we know as players, there's certain lines you don't cross. And for the most part, I don't think players do. So I absolutely hate it. I think majority of the fans hate it as well.
I agree. I think, you know, so many fans like to see that emotion and the personality that you mentioned. What side, when you played, were you on? Taunting or getting taunted?
You know, I was pretty stoic. I was pretty stoic. If I did talk, you know, it would be loud enough for me and that guy to hear. And if the guy was started, okay, then we can kind of get and going back and forth. But, you know, it's so much that you're thinking about, and you know, I was, you know, one of those players that thought through a lot of downs, pre-snap, post-snap, and things like that, communicating a lot with my teammates. So it's selfish to get into, you know, big jarring matches and talking and fighting and doing all that between downs. So I wasn't big on that. And when I scored touchdowns or made big plays, you know, I had coaches growing up, hey, act like you've been there before. So, you know, I was kind of that way. But, you know, I didn't mind guys who were on the other side of that, the Deion Sanders, the Chad Johnsons, the Jalen Ramseys of the world. I also enjoyed the Cam Newton, I remember specifically his 2015 MVP year, you know, when he was doing the Superman and dabbing and doing everything, you know, D coordinators and coaches and players, you know, some of them would have to, you know, be upset about it. But my thought is, hey, stop him from making plays, stop him from scoring touchdowns. We don't have to worry about it. So I never had a big problem with it. But me personally, you know, talking a bunch of trash or taunting, anything like that, that wasn't really in my wheelhouse.
No, you said that in such a cordial, political way. I enjoy that. I'm a big trash talker on the ice as a Canadian hockey player. That's a big part of that type of game. But you mentioned, you know... I like
how you guys handle business on the ice.
Yeah, that's how it goes down.
It's a different world there.
It's trash talking. But one world that I really want to dive into with you and a whole lot more when we get back after the break is the Patriot way and everything that comes with being drafted and playing for the New England Patriots. Guys, we are drinking and binking here with Darius Butler. Don't go anywhere.
Back.
I'm Kurt Menefee, and I had drinks with Binks.
Hey, I'm Cynthia Freeland, and I had drinks with Binks.
Hey guys, welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, joined by 9-year NFL vet Darius Butler turned media star. But where you started in the NFL was with the Patriots, being drafted in the second round in 2009. You mentioned in a video before the Super Bowl last year that you felt as though Bill Belichick really illustrated the Patriot way. In everything that we've seen since then, especially with Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl, do you still feel as though that is the case?
Well, yeah, I always feel like it was a combination of Bill and Brady. I feel like if I had to give the edge to one, I would give it to Bill just because of his, the responsibilities that he held as a GM, as the head coach, and everything that goes into the Patriot way. But you needed a guy like Tom Brady to kind of carry that throughout the locker room. You see him doing it, in his elder years down in Tampa, bringing that winning mentality. And that was a good roster, but he kind of got them over the hump, showing them, what a championship team looks like. But, Belichick, he's done this, for 2 decades now, and the way that he does business is kind of different than anyone else around the league. And to have that type of sustained success I don't know that we'll ever see that again in the NFL. But Brady, he looks like to me at least, I expect to see him in LA playing for another Super Bowl this February. So it's absolutely wild how he might be the first person I see that's actually taking Father Time, to the 12th round.
Yeah, I know. It's inspiring and sort of it's odd to say the least. Sometimes you think, well, how is this guy doing this right now? But you mentioned Bill Belichick, and what's like a story that you have? I know you get asked this all the time, and you've mentioned this, but like, what's maybe a vivid memory that you have of Bill sort of embodying that Patriot way?
One of the biggest things with him is just do your job and just accountability. And everyone says it, but he's really the only. I played for 3 organizations, the Patriots, the Panthers, and the Colts. And they're more so than anyone else, the details are just harped on from, A to Z and back from Z back to A. And everyone in the building is kind of held to that standard. And some other places, you can kind of get away with maybe not knowing exactly my responsibility or not knowing this part of the game plan or that part. But Bill Belichick, he's going to call you out. And it's something I remember early on in training camp, he called Tom Brady out. He missed a couple throws in practice and he wasn't happy about it. And the next day in the meetings, he's like, hey, man, if we can just get a quarterback that can just hit wide open guys, maybe we can win some games this year. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, this dude I came in, this was 2009. This dude was already considered, one of the GOATs. So that I don't know if they kind of plan that behind the scenes before they go into it. And they do that. Do that little shtick every training camp. But it definitely resonates with you that, hey, if Tom Brady's been held to this standard, and I know Darius Butler has got to be held to at least that same standard as well. So, and it's not like that in every organization. If a guy's making $10, $12, $15 million a year, he's not getting called out by those coaches. And a lot of times because that player is going to stick around longer than that coach will. But, Kraft and Belichick and how they run their organization, man, it's tight. And it can be kind of miserable at times, to be honest. It can be very militant. But, on Sunday when you're running out of that tunnel, that you got a damn good chance of winning that ball game. So it makes it all worth it.
How is it miserable?
I mean, you're just on pins and needles, and you practice hard, which, I didn't mind the practicing hard. You condition, at least back then, we conditioned after almost every practice because another one of his things was, hey, we're going to be the most well-conditioned team out there on Sundays because a lot of, fatigue makes a coward of us all. So that's when you start to lose your fundamentals. That's when you start thinking about other things as you get tired. And, once you get into week 12, week 14, you can definitely tell some teams are more gassed physically and mentally than others. So like I said, when you're doing it, when you're putting that work, it's just like anything else. If you're putting that work in and you're putting more work than anybody else in before the fight or the game or whatever, you hate it. But once you're actually in that ring and you're looking across at other guys' eyes and okay, I know this guy to the right and to the left of me has been, we got some common suffering and some common preparation. So, we have the edge. And that's why you have that success for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. It is militant in that regard, as you mentioned before. But looking at the guys ahead of you, in front of you, excuse me, we just found out some of the nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame 2022 and 4 first ballot potential Hall of Famers, wide receivers. Wanted to ask your opinion on which one of these players you think should be inducted into the Hall of Fame. We have Anquan Boldin, Steve Smith, Devin Hester, or Andre Johnson. Who would you pick?
Wow. Oh, man. I love all these guys. First and foremost, 2 of them are former teammates, Steve Smith Sr. and Andre Johnson, who's a South Florida legend. So is Anquan Bolden, South Florida. So is Devin Hester, South Florida legend. So this is tough for me. I obviously played against all these guys as well. Being a first ballot wide receiver that's probably the toughest position to get into your first try. Devin Hester, he is the all-time greatest returner that the game has seen, though. And even Deion Sanders has given him that crown. So if I had to pick one of these guys, I guess it wouldn't be a receiver. So I'm going to put Devin Hester in because he's the greatest returner of all time. And then if I got to the receivers.
Or even just your first one in was Devin Hester?
First one is Devin Hester.
Okay.
First one in Devin Hester. But, Andre Johnson, he was a beast. I mean, these guys.
Well, all these guys could likely be in, right?
Andre Johnson. I go Andre Johnson first ballot.
Oh, okay. So that was like photo finish. Devin.
Yeah,
Hester,
I got to give him the edge.
Got there. Okay.
Although Anquan had.
We have a third one coming up from the outside.
Anquan Bolden, he had a historic Super Bowl run. That run to get them to the Super Bowl. I know Flacco was the MVP, but if anyone remembers watching those playoffs, Anquan played a huge role. And then Steve Smith, he's obviously been fantastic his whole career. He's doing his thing in broadcast. Everybody gets in. Everyone
gets in. Listen, all of them. Okay, so we have a whole lot more about Darius Butler and who he went up against and how he shut them down when we come back after the break on Drinks with Binks. Don't go anywhere.
Let's do it.
Hey, what's up? It's Sean Lights Out Merriman, and we just play Lights Out on Drinks with Binks.
Hey guys, welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB, joined by 9-year NFL vet Darius Butler, and wanted to ask him what the key was to shutting down a number of top wide receivers that are in the game still today. So we're playing a game called The Butler Did It, which I had to say like that because it sounds like Clue, which is a great game if you win it. It sucks if you lose, Clue. So just like it would suck losing an NFL football game, what a segue. Okay, so Darius, I'm going to ask you about very specific circumstances and wide receivers, and you tell me how the Butler did it. Got it?
Let's do it.
Okay, so in 2016, Colts beat the Packers 31-26. Colts D held Davante Adams to 4 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown on 8 targets. Adams was an All-Pro last season. How did the Butler do it?
Oh, you know what? That's one of my favorite games ever. So I got a nice pick. I think Davante Adams might have been the target. So I was playing safety that game. And one of my favorite coverages to run against Aaron Rodgers in that offense was what we call one robber. And you basically put your corners, your defenders, whoever on that defender, especially when he's in the slot, and you tell him, hey, guard this guy, be rough with him, but stay outside and kind of funnel him inside. I'll be back here deep. I'll pretend like I'm back here, but I'm going to roll down to kind of A-Rod's blind spot, and anything that he throws inside, I'm going to try to jump it. And it actually worked perfect. A-Rod rarely throws interceptions, especially at home. So that was the game plan that week. And everybody else was kind of on their own. You guys, you were out there. I think Jordy Nelson was still there. We had Randall Cobb was still there. We had some other weapons, but, when you're facing a guy like Davante Adams, you got to at least have 2 sets of eyes on him. And fortunately, we got him more than they got us that week.
Right. And that pick was intended for Davante Adams that you had. So that is that's definitely a great game to remember. Okay, moving on. In 2017, Colts beat the Texans 20-14 and held DeAndre Hopkins to 6 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown on 16 targets.
Dang.
How did the Butler do it?
DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke, he was a little different. That was a divisional rival. So we were very familiar with each other, both teams. But we played him more so like a 2-man. So the defenders, the primary defenders, I'll call them, would be physical with him once again and then try to play underneath him. So let DeAndre get kind of on top of him. And that way, whatever deep help you had can be on top and prevent the deep ball. But one of D-Hop's favorite things during that era out there in Houston was the back shoulders, the out routes, kind of intermediate routes. He would just kill teams on, which he still caught us on a few. But he played the odds, and he got a ton of targets, which, he still does. But that was the best way to, slow him down. He still had 86 yards and a touchdown on us. But, 16 targets, we'll live with that. So we play him a little differently. And not as much around him in Houston that Davante Adams had out there in Green Bay. So it was a little easier, and he definitely didn't have A-Rod throwing in the ball either. So that definitely helped. That always helps.
Yeah, you can really key in on him. Okay, finally, in 2016, the Colts beat the Jets 41-10. Colts D held Robby Anderson to 4 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown on 12 targets. How did the Butler make Anderson invisible?
Yeah. We had they had Brandon Marshall out there. He was kind of their stick mover, and Robby Anderson was he was the shot guy. He was the speed guy, and so we just had to keep two safeties deep as much as possible, and force I think Fitzpatrick was the starting quarterback, and then he got either hurt or benched. And I can't remember who they put in, but he did catch us late with a touchdown late in the game in the blowout Monday Night Football. But I got to pick off of Fitzpatrick that game too. That was a key there, just keeping 2 safeties deep and kind of force them to matriculate the ball down the field and not give up the big play. So that's what we did with Robby. But Robby has developed so much. All of these receivers, that's why they're still playing. They've developed and added so many more tools, put so many more tools in their toolbox, and they get at this point, more and more impossible to stop. And all these guys have good quarterbacks throwing the ball as well. So it's tough. So one of the keys before all these X and O's, make sure you get up early, get a good pregame meal, and you send up a nice to be on your side that Sunday or Monday, and that'll be your best bet. But unfortunately, we had a good year that year in stopping some of these guys.
It's really remarkable just the level of depth that you can remember these specific plays and games. That it's kind of like, how Sean McVay can just sort of remember each play every moment. It's got to be just like ingrained into your brain.
Yeah, for some guys, they don't remember that play by Tuesday night. But I was one of the guys. I played nickel a lot of my career, especially in Indy, and I was kind of like the ultimate communicator. I had to communicate with my linebackers, my corners, my safeties. So kind of knowing, I played a big role in kind of the game plan. The coaches fortunately let me have a lot of input in the game plan as well.
Well, we learned a whole lot on how the Butler did it. Very sneaky, and very many different weapons were used in different rooms to make the clue reference complete. We have a whole lot more to come, and where to find Darius Butler on the other side of Drinks with Binks. Don't go anywhere. Subscribe to the Fubo Sports YouTube page for clips and full episodes. Follow us at Fubo Sports on all social media channels. Also available in podcast form wherever you find your favorite pods. Well, guys, we've had an awesome time drinking and binking with Darius Butler, and make sure that you follow him at Darius J. Butler on social media, and check out his podcast, the Man to Man Podcast, and Everything DB Show, which is on YouTube. And you can also find us, of course, on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Fubo Sports, and watch all of our other episodes of Drinks with Binks and beyond at Fubo Sports on YouTube. And until next time, bottoms up, bitches.